You got the agenda up now.
Excellent.
There you go, Chair, you're live.
Thank you. Good morning, members. Welcome everyone to this meeting of the Licensing Committee, which is being held fully remotely and in accordance with legislation changes to allow the Council to continue to operate in an open and transparent way. Decisions made at today's meeting are just as applicable as in a traditional meeting setting, provided the number of members in attendance ensures the meeting remains correct. I would like to remind members that this meeting is still being live streamed to the public, and can I request that you all switch off your cameras and mute your microphones when you are not speaking, and also ensure that you have your chat bar open to indicate when you wish to speak. Before we start the meeting, members, I'd like to wish you all a happy new year. And I would also like to take this opportunity to remember our colleague and friend, Peter Clark, who sadly passed away last week. Opportunity for members to pass on comments will be made at the next full council on the 27th. So just like to say that our thoughts are with Jan and friends and family. Thank you, members. First item on the agenda is apologies for absence. Do we have any apologies for absence, please?
Yes, Chair, we have apologies from Councillor Howarth.
Thank you. Item 2 is declarations of interest. Any declarations of interest, members, or as and when?
Yeah,
As and when, Chair.
Thank you. Item 3 is to confirm the following minutes.
Apologies off, Councillor Gilson.
Yeah, I'm
Yes,
here. I'm in
Jim's
now.
here.
You hear you, all right?
Yeah. I had a private problems, but anyway, I am in.
Thank you. Item 3 is to confirm the following minutes. 3.1 Licensing and Regulatory
Can we
Subcommittee.
take them on block, Chair?
Yes, certainly. There's a seconder for that.
I'll
Thank you.
second that, Chairman.
Item 4 is the review of annual license fees for financial year 22-23. If I could pass on to Linda, please, if that's possible.
Thank you, Chair. I'm Linda O'Gorman, the Principal Licensing Officer for Monmouthshire Council. The report that's been brought to committee today is to approve the licence fees for the financial year 2022 to 23. The authority has a broad range of licensing responsibilities, including the regulation of licensed premises, taxis and hackney carriages, gambling, street trading, street collection and scrap metal dealers. While some licence fees are set by government, others are locally set at the discretion of the authority. So that's the reason for this report coming today, is that fees also must be set on a reasonable cost recovery basis only, and cannot be set in such a manner as to generate a profit or act as an economic deterrent to traders. Members also will clearly also need to be mindful of the potential burden on businesses of increasing costs, and to weigh that against the potential burden of underwriting the costs of administrating various licensing functions. We have taken a significant amount of work to calculate the true costs associated with the licenses, and that is actually highlighted on Appendix A of this report, the assessment of those fees. In accordance with Section 70 of the Local Government Miscellaneous Provisions Act 1976, the authority is obliged to give notice of any intention to vary the fees for the grant of licenses for hackney carriage and private hire vehicle operators. So whatever fees are increased today, this will have to involve a legal notice to that effect. It is recommended that any objections to that legal notice, the variation be brought back to committee for consideration. With regards to the Gambling Act 2005 fees, they need to be assessed on the 21st of May each year. So a further report regarding those fees will be brought to the Licensing Committee on the 8th of March 2022. So the purpose of this report today is to assess the fees on Appendix A of this report. And the recommendations is that they approve the fees set out in Appendix A, schedule of licensing fees for 2022-23, subject to be relevant to any required public notice. Any objections duly made regarding the fees for grant of a licence for hackney carriage and private hire vehicles be brought back to committee at the earliest opportunity for due consideration. So that's the nature of the report today.
Thank you, Linda. I don't see any raised hands in the raised hand function, but are there any members with any questions or comments, please? No.
No, none from me.
Hi, I did put a raised hand.
Okay, I can see that now. Councillor Blakeborough.
Oh, thanks. Yeah, just very quickly. I suppose two main questions is just for me to know how much have the costs increased in the last year, and how do our fees compare with other authorities? I guess the third question is have we taken into account the extra burden of you know, the difficulties from the pandemic, and hopefully we're post-pandemic now and on the road to recovery?
Thank you, Councillor Blakeborough. Linda, would you like to come back on that?
Yeah, with regards to the burden of the pandemic, if you recall last year, we actually froze the fees and assessment wasn't made. So obviously this is the second year now where we've looked at the fees, and it can be sort of done over a 3-year sort of period, and, you know, as mentioned within the report. How the fees are assessed is done through quite an intense sort of interrogation of how much work has been carried out in those years. And it's actually done via sort of an Excel spreadsheet, which is approved by the Always Licensing Expert Panel. So it's something that's used throughout the authorities in Wales. So, you know, with regards to sort of how it's assessed, it is dependent on how much sort of inspections you've done, how much work you've done, any policy changes, any other sort of number of things really that can be sort of brought in to how the fees are assessed. So it is on, you know, it's very near to a comparison to other authorities because of that very reason really. We're all dealing with similar sort of works. It depends as well on the number of applications you process, you know, how many you license. So there's quite a number of varying factors that sort of brings it in to the fee assessment. So with regards to how much has increased, like I said, so the actual on the Appendix A, you can see what the current fees are, and like I said, that was exactly the same last year because there was no assessment done last year, and as opposed to this year. So I hope that answers the questions really. So.
Yeah, thanks. I mean, obviously the sort of questions a lot of people know the answers to, but it's just quite good to sort of get it public really. Thanks.
Thank you, Debbie. Thank you, Linda. Any further? Dave Jones, please.
Yeah,
Sorry, see his hand.
Yeah, thanks, Chair. Just in response to Councillor Blakeborough's question, just quickly looking at it, the one that tends to agitate sometimes the drivers, that's the main one in terms of numbers. If you look at line E, the driver renewals, it's gone up £11, that's over 3 years. So that's just done a quick calculation, that's 31 pence a month. So it is minimal. And just to add to, obviously during the pandemic, yes, people have struggled, but obviously our drivers have continued. So it's not like a licensed premises actually shut down. They have obviously been operating. So I think it's wholly reasonable, as Linda says, it's done on a cost recovery basis. The calculation I did for that one, which seems to be the one that tends to be a little bit more contentious, a 185 to 196 represents 6%. But I think because we had 0 the year before, that seems reasonable. It will go out to the trade, obviously, but I think for the vehicle license, it's 50 pence a month. And for the driver renewal, which tends to be the one that, you know, in terms of numbers and feedback tends to be the higher one, that's 31 pence a month. So I think seems wholly reasonable in terms of cost recovery. And obviously compared to the escalating price of diesel fuel, that's going to be the least of their worries. Unfortunately, that's the cost, isn't it, that we all notice is the cost of the pumps. And these folks aren't doing 5,000–6,000 miles a year. They're doing big mileages to Bristol Airport, etc. So I think comparatively, I can't see any difficulties, Chair, with a 31 pence a month increase. We have been very mindful of the pandemic and how businesses have struggled. We do liaise with them regularly, and we think that that's a reasonable minimal increase. Thanks, Chair.
Okay, thank you, Dave. Councillor Higginson.
Yes, Chairman. I'm following on what David just outlined to members. I personally, I don't any increase that we put on our charges, if you like, our licensing fees, is passed on anyway. And I appreciate this, you know, that Councillor Blakeborough is coming from that side of it. but they pass on charges anyway. And I think that we need, you know, as a council, I am putting it this way, I think we need to take account of the fact that, you know, if we as a council don't do something about it, as the committee don't do something about it, then the charges will you know, the charges involved within the council in relation to, you know, the work that goes on with the clerks and the licensing officers and so on. You know, we can find that one way or another, like members, residents or you know, residents will be paying it anyway. So, you know, it should be directed to that source, which is what it is. And I think it personally, that the charges, you know, they should be passed on, not for the council to pick up, you know, whatever the increased costs there are. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you, Councillor Higginson. Councillor Anthony Eason, please.
Yeah. Yeah, thank you, Chair. Just one quick question is to do with the horse-drawn hackney carriage vehicle. What sort of take-up do we have of hackney carriages within Monmouthshire? Are they just wedding units? And is that an appropriate amount, which is the same as a hackney carriage vehicle, a new one, in other words?
Okay, if I can answer that. It's not wedding vehicles or funeral because they're exempt under the legislation for sort of taxi licensing. We did have a horse and cart which actually did a small journey from Tintern Abbey, which didn't sort of carry on the business, unfortunately. It is regarded the same as a taxi driver because it's hackney carriage, which is where the legislation actually evolved from, in fact, you know, before it went changed over to vehicles. So you've got the same amount of checks, you know, you've got the same sort of DBS check, the same medical checks, the same element. Obviously the difference is you're dealing with animals and horse and cart, and then you have vet sort of inspection, so it's slightly different towards a hackney carriage, but that's the only difference. Whereas a car would be tested, you'd have the vet's report and the cart itself being tested. So it is on comparison to a hackney vehicle because of the fact that you're doing the same nature of work to assess the license itself.
Okay, thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I can see no further hands. So in point 2 on the report, the recommendation is 2.1, approve the fees set out in Appendix A to this report, entitled Schedule of Licence Fees for 2022-23, subject where relevant to any required public notice. And 2.2, any objections duly made regarding fees for the grant of licences for hackney carriage and private hire vehicles be brought back to committee at the earliest opportunity for due consideration. I move to accept these. Do I have a seconder, please?
I second them, Chairman.
Yeah.
Thank you very much. All those in favour, please say yes.
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 Any abstentions?
No, it's on the bar as well.
Oh,
No problem.
okay, okay, we've got it in the chat bar, so
All right.
apologies, members. Go in the chat bar. I think that's carried. Yeah.
A little bit, yeah.
Excellent. Okay, thank you, members. That concludes this morning's meeting. Just leaves me to say that item 5, the next meeting is scheduled for Tuesday, 8th of March 2022 at 10 a.m. Thank you, members, for your time this morning. Short and sweet. It's good to see you all. Welcome, Debbie, to the committee for the remainder of the year. And I look forward to seeing members at the next opportunity.
Can you ask Linda to give me or if Linda's still online, could you ask Linda to give me a call, please, on my home number? There's something I need to report to her, or
Okay.
either Linda or David.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's fine, no problem. I'll get in touch with you, Councillor Higginson.
Also, Chair, did Wendy get back to me with the any help with planning tomorrow? Perhaps